everyone, and welcome back to another installment of the Monster Hunter Rise Beginner's Notes. In today's video, we will be discussing a newcomer to the Monster Hunter series, the Great Izuchi, whom I may refer to as the Izuchi from time to time. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting off with the Hunter's Notes, the Great Izuchi is classified as a bird wyvern, and as mentioned previously, is making its first series appearance here in Monster Hunter Rise. In terms of appearance, the Izuchi is kind of like a cross between a Ragi and Heiachi from Tekken. As you can see, the resemblance is uncanny. The Hunter's Notes has the Great Izuchi rated a 1 star out of 10 in terms of threat level, which puts him right alongside some of the wimpiest monsters in the game, which unfortunately I cannot disagree with. In terms of physiology, there are 5 spots on his body that you can attack: its head, torso, foreleg, tail, and tail tip. Of those spots, its head and tail tip are breakable, so focus on those parts to nab some extra material. Also a quick note that his tail does not sever. The Great Izuchi's head and tail tip are also its weak spot for all weapon types, so aside from the extra material, it is a good idea to focus on these 2 spots as you will be maximizing damage. The Great Izuchi is susceptible to multiple elemental attacks to an extent. However, electric and water will be the most effective against it. Moving on to ailments, Izuchi is pretty much susceptible to every ailment in the game, so it probably is not a bad idea to try to inflict something on it. It is most susceptible to poison, paralysis, sleep, and exhaust, with stun, blast, and thunderblight being in a slightly lower tier in terms of effectiveness. Next, let's have a look at the Great Izuchi's moveset. The bulk of Izuchi's attacks and damage will come from its tail attack, so you will be hearing about his tail quite a bit here. Starting off, the Great Izuchi usually doesn't come to the fight alone. It will start off with a couple of his boys, which are Izuchis, when you first encounter it. If the Izuchis are defeated, the Great Izuchi can perform a howl to call for more. The Izuchis will mimic many of the moves that the Great Izuchi performs, so this does, in a sense, extend the coverage and range of the Great Izuchi's attack. Next, let's look at a move which looks kind of like a swipe with his head. The Great Izuchi will stand partly upright, or you may see it as winding back and thrusting his head forward at you. I have also seen him do a swipe with his arm instead of jaw after winding up, so I just wanted to include it in this section as it looked similar. The wind up is not incredibly fast or anything, so unless you're in the midst of attacking, you should be able to dodge it. Another non-tail move in the Great Izuchi's arsenal is what I refer to as a charging swipe attack. As the name implies, the Izuchi will charge forward at you while swiping back and forth with his arms / upper limbs, whatever you want to call it. The setup for this move is the Izuchi will open his limbs kind of like he's going to give you a hug, but instead of that hug, he gives you a thrashing. This move covers a bit of distance and is surprisingly fast. It is possible that if its Izuchi companions are there, they can be mimicking this, creating a greater challenge to avoiding this attack. The Great Izuchi's final non-tail attack is one where he literally spits at you. The Izuchi and its buddies will send a large wad of spit forward, which can travel quite a distance. The damage it does is minimal, so not a lot to worry about with this move. The signal to look out for is that the Izuchi will stand upright and what looks like fucking up the old Spitball before unleashing it. Alright, let's finally discuss the Izuchi's tail attack, of which there are several varieties. These moves will likely deal most of the damage to you in any given match, so definitely pay attention to them. The first of these moves is a simple tail swipe. the Great Izuchi will do a 180-degree tail whip from one side of its body. There seems to be two varieties of this, where one is more of a spin, while the other, the Izuchi will whip its tail, hitting the ground directly in front of it. The move is pretty much stationary, so Izuchi does not move too far from the spot it unleashed this move. Therefore, the reach is very limited. The preparation for this move is that the Great Izuchi will lean forward and get closer to the ground with its tail raised behind it before going into its spin and unleashing the attack. Tail move number 2 is an overhead flip, ending off with the Izuchi smashing its tail on the ground ahead of it. Izuchi will get into a stance with his mouth open like he's screeching before flipping forward and slamming its tail into the ground. Its tail will get stuck temporarily when it does this, so this will provide you with an opportunity to do some damage to the Izuchi. The final move in the Great Izuchi's tail repertoire is a triple Sao with a tail smash thrown in for artistic point. All joking aside, the Great Izuchi will do 3 forward-moving spins and end off the move with a tail smash into the ground. Note that this move is probably Izuchi's strongest and therefore most dangerous move. The setup for this is that he jumps back and gets low before unleashing the triple tail attack. As a final item to be aware of, if you are in an area with something such as a cliff, the Great Izuchi can hang on to the side of that cliff and launch his tail attack from there. I just wanted to make you aware that it isn't checking out the views if you ever see it on the side of a cliff. And that wraps up our discussion about the Great Izuchi. As stated in the Hunter's Notes, the Izuchi is a low threat monster, so you should have no problem dispatching it. I found the armor set for the Great Izuchi to be pretty cool looking, so definitely look to collect those materials and craft yourself a set. I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified for future videos. And of course, it is my duty to remind you to enter the maelstrom. This is Kieran, signing off.